All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a story that starts with one person's experience, but honestly, it uncovers a massive systemic problem in our media. It all kicks off with a simple experiment and lands on a really powerful idea for how we can all become, well, smarter and more resilient thinkers. So, a little heads up from the source material itself, this is going to be a deep dive. We're following a journey from being totally burnt out on the news to a big idea that could genuinely change things for the future. So yeah, get comfortable.
So here's the game plan. We're going to start with a failure, something I think a lot of us can relate to. Then we'll pinpoint what the real problem is, because it might not be what you think. We'll get into the big structural forces that keep us all hooked on outrage. And then, and this is the good part, we'll build the case for a solution aimed squarely at the next generation.
Okay, so our story kicks off with a personal challenge. The author decides to go on a total news blackout, right in the middle of a presidential election. I mean, the goal was simple enough, just opt out. No more noise, no more talking heads, no more endless drama.
Yeah, it did not go well. Despite all the best intentions, the experiment was a complete and utter failure. Why? Because the emotional pull was just too strong. And the irony is, trying to unplug actually led to plugging in even harder. The author ended up watching more cable news in that 1 week than in the last 15 years combined.
But, every failure is a learning opportunity, right? This one actually confirmed a suspicion a lot of us have, that the major news networks, both of them, are deeply biased. And more than that, they seem to be intentionally blurring that line between hard news and pure opinion. And this right here is the big aha moment. Look, the fact that they're biased, that's not exactly breaking news. We all kind of know that. The real shock was seeing, side by side, how they were using the exact same playbook, the same manipulative tools to persuade an audience that, and this is a direct quote, is often ill-equipped to make the distinction. So what are these tools? They're called logical fallacies. The author argues this is the real fake news. It's not always about lying or making things up. It's about using arguments that sound good on the surface but are actually built on faulty reasoning. Think of things like an ad hominem attack, where you attack the person instead of their argument, or a strongman, where you misrepresent your opponent's position to make it easier to tear down. It's a way of framing reality that tricks you into making an assumption instead of reaching a full understanding.
Okay, so if we know the techniques they're using, why can't we just, fix it? Well, this is where it gets really complicated. The problem is baked into the very foundation of our society, where two of our core beliefs are in a constant head-on collision.
And this slide lays out the conflict perfectly. The author is crystal clear here. They have an absolute, unshakable belief in the First Amendment. The government should have zero role in telling the press what to say. That is a line you do not cross. Period. But, and this is the huge but, that free press has to survive in a capitalist world. And in that world, the business model runs on eyeballs. The more viewers you have, the more you can charge for ads. And what gets the most eyeballs? The most extreme, the most hyperbolic, the most outrage-inducing content. So you're stuck. This system financially rewards the very thing that undermines informed discourse. The author doesn't pretend to have the easy answer for this paradox, but it is the central problem. So that brings it back to us, the individual. If the system is locked in this battle with itself, can we just educate ourselves out of the problem? Can we all just get smarter? Well, for most adults out there in the real world, the author says the answer is a hard no. And this is just being realistic. It's not an insult. Think about it. We're asking adults, people with jobs, kids, mortgages, and a million other things on their plate, to take the personal initiative to go learn a complex, abstract subject like logical fallacies. There's no promotion waiting for you if you do. There's no bonus. Life is already full of things that are a much higher priority. It's not something people are naturally motivated to seek out. So it takes a ton of self-discipline that, frankly, is a huge ask. The reality is, most people will go their entire lives without ever even being properly introduced to these critical thinking tools. And this personal story just drives the point home. The author only learned this stuff because it was a mandatory part of a job in a highly specialized field. It wasn't just available knowledge, it was professional training. And that just makes you wonder, why is this skill this fundamental to navigating modern life treated like a trade secret? So, let's recap. The system is trapped. And realistically, we can't retrain the entire adult population. So what's left? Well, this is where we get to the solution. We stop trying to patch up the present and we start building for the future. The only way to solve a systemic problem like this is with a systemic solution. And that means equipping the next generation with the tools they need right from the start. And I love this philosophy. It's not enough to just point out what's broken. You have to come to the table with a real, thought-out plan to fix it. And that's exactly what the author does.
And here it is. This is the big idea. We're not talking about an extra credit project or some niche elective for the debate team. We're talking about making critical thinking and the study of logical fallacies a core, mandatory part of public education for every single kid. It should be just as fundamental as learning math or how to read. It needs to be woven into the very fabric of our education system.
And this has to be a cumulative process. You can't just do it in one semester. Imagine this. In elementary school, you start with the basics. What's a fact versus an opinion? What makes a good reason to believe something? Then in middle school, you ramp it up. You start analyzing commercials, political ads. You give names to the tricks you're seeing. The bandwagon appeal, the slippery slope. You make it a game almost. And then by high school, it's about mastery. Students should be able to dissect a complex news article, a Supreme Court decision, or a historical speech, and not just spot the fallacies, but explain exactly why they're flawed and how to construct a better argument. The goal is fluency. By the time they graduate, these skills should be second nature, an intellectual toolkit they carry with them for the rest of their lives.
So what happens if we actually do this? What's the end game? What's the ultimate payoff? Well, it's about a lot more than just being good at debating online.
What you get is a population with a built-in BS detector, people who are instinctively skeptical, who don't just take claims at face value. A citizenry that is fundamentally more resistant to manipulation and disinformation, no matter if it's coming from the left, the right, or anywhere else. You basically build a national intellectual immune system.
And yeah, let's be real. There's a personal upside too. As the author puts it, you become empowered. This is about intellectual self-defense. It's giving every single person the tools they need to protect themselves in a world that is constantly trying to manipulate them. It's how you get a smarter, less polarized, and a whole lot less bamboozled country. And that's the question we'll leave you with. Just think about it for a second. What would our politics look like? Our media? Our everyday conversations? What would change if everyone had this fundamental skill? Thanks for digging into this one with us.